Well, I need to give a little background information before you see this clip. It's about what is a liaison trustee all about. First of all, a liaison is one of the duties of an elected trustee. It gives them an opportunity to become acquainted with the schools. They act on behalf of the board when a board representative is desired at school functions. That could be Christmas concert, basketball games, commencement ceremonies. The liaison trustee gives the speech for the graduating class. It provides an opportunity for increased communication between trustees and the residents of that school community. And also they advise the board chair if there's any emergent issues at their schools. But once again, each trustee just represents themselves. It's sort of the fun part of being a trustee. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to visit the schools on a timely basis.
Okay, so we're moving on to action item 4.3, liaison schools, which is my action item. And I've submitted a motion to Donna. I can read the motion, but if you have it up on the screen, that's great too. Oh, okay, I'll read it. I move that the Board of Education approve Appendix A to Policy 223 as presented. So it's up on the screen there. And do I get a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Reichelt seconds. I'm going to begin, since it's my motion, somewhat unusual for the chair, but not outside the realm of possibilities. It's clear in our policy, policy 206, it's clear that the board gets to appoint, in consultation with trustees, board representatives to all internal committees, liaison sites, and external. Sorry?
You said board when you meant chairs.
Oh, yes, chair. Sorry, I meant chair. Is to appoint, in consultation with trustees, board representatives to all internal committees, liaison sites, and external organizations. So I came up with this this appendix to trustee liaisons. I was basically, I got enough. Well, I was accused of being a dictator, essentially. So I've brought this forward to the board for the board to either support it or not support it, and it's up to them. So with that, I will accept any dissenting voices, any positive or affirming voices.
What happened at this meeting was that normally the chairman decides who to assign to which schools. Normally the board doesn't vote on it. He just tries to make sure that trustee isn't in a position of conflict. There shouldn't be a liaison with a school where their family are working or attending or their friends are attending. Tries to rotate it through the 4-year period so each trustee gets a chance to connect with every school. But in this particular instance, he made a list called the Policy Appendix A, and he brought it to the board for approval without any prior notice. Because there was no prior notice, basically what he's doing is that he is removing me from my office. And as an elected trustee, I have a right to connect with schools. But Dan, in his wisdom, thought that I would be a bad influence on the schools, so he produced this list with me specifically and conspicuously absent. He also did not assign any trustee liaison duties to Trustee Ferguson. Also, in this decision, he deliberately made sure that I was not part of any committees. The Education Policy Advisory Committee is where members of the community advise members of the board as to what our education policy should be. You'll note that all the various partner groups are represented, including students. The other major committees are the Budget Committee, which once again tries to have some student representative, and the Audit Committee. The one thing that's not mentioned in board policy is the Aboriginal Advisory Committee.
Trustee Neufeld, do you have your?
Well, this is a rather important motion, and it came at the last minute, so the public hasn't had a chance to see it. But as you can see from the list, my name has deliberately been omitted. In other words, the chair is barring me from having any contact with schools. I was elected in Chilliwack to do the job of a school trustee. He is preventing me from doing that, and that is clearly workplace discrimination. And so I am opposed to this motion.
Anyone else? Trustee Reichelt.
Well, I'm in favor of this motion. I actually believe that nobody who has opinions that contravene the Human Rights Code and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms has actually any business being in schools. So if it was up to me, I would exclude another trustee as well, but that hasn't been done in this case. We've got one. So Mr. Neufeld has made discriminatory comments about gay and transgender people. It's not acceptable. He doesn't belong in schools.
I was accused of being an undesirable influence, but there's never been a trial. Robert's Rules of Order has very clear rules to how there should be a trial. I have never been convicted in any outside body, neither a court nor a human rights tribunal, of being a threat to the safety of any student or group of educators.
Okay, so Trustee Reichelt has just broken the trustee code of conduct by disparaging another colleague on the Board of Education, which is disappointing. This board has never brought a motion before the public to vote on our school liaisons. This is a demonstration of how this board is not able to function for the entire community. This board actually believes, or a portion of this board actually believes, that they only represent the people who agree with them. And this is very, very disappointing, to say the least. No trustee has the right over any other trustee. We are 7 equally elected people, and no chair or corporate board has the right to bar one member, especially right after an election, especially when you look at what the numbers were. So basically, what this board, this chair and vice chair are saying to us is that they disagree with half of our population and therefore are going to impose their will on them. This is undemocratic and this is improper, to say the least.
Okay, I'm just going to ask because Trustee Moz earlier was not getting, getting flack from the gallery. I'm just going to ask that we hold down our applause and our cheering and also standing and going, hey, at people. So let's not do that. But given that, is there anyone else who wants to speak? Okay, Trustee Ferguson.
I would concur with Trustee Ma's assessment of the inappropriateness of this board to consider an action based on the personal opinions of one trustee concerning Barry. This board must represent all parents in the community. The responsibility for education, according to the Ministry of Education, lies with parents. Now, the fact is we all represent a large number of parents having been elected. That includes Barry. So is this board making a statement that the public will see as excluding them who voted for each of us? Does the board want to be viewed in the community as non-inclusive of even their own members because there's a vendetta of sorts? because Barry is elected. The people who put him there have a legal right, I believe, to file a grievance. Their voices are being silenced in an arbitrary fashion. So I believe it's a procedure that's invalid to even take this type of vote. To try and vote out another trustee does not send a good message to the public.
Okay, is there anyone else?
I just want to say I'm just hearing a lot of comments about voters and population, but I'm not really hearing much about parents and students. And I think that what brought this on was the feeling of some teachers and students feeling unsafe because of comments made by Trustee Neufeld and posts made by Trustee Neufeld. So I think that we need to keep the conversation about the students and the teachers in the schools that he would be visiting in his capacity as a liaison.
Trustee Swanky.
Thank you. I'd also like to point out that the liaison role is not explicitly part of the responsibility outlined of a school trustee. It's not about the individual trustee. It's about the individuals at that school, whether they be staff or students or parents, having a connection with the Board of Education. There's nothing that is proposed here that denies that connection with the board. Rather, what I would suggest is that this is a democratic, transparent process by which we are trying to come to terms with the fact that there is a loss of trust in one of our colleagues. There has been actions that have been taken that I can't with confidence feel that they will enter a school and represent the Board of Education well. I'm not going to speak to how parents feel. We've heard from them. I'm not going to speak to how students feel, although we have heard from them as well. Speaking for myself, I can't trust that Trustee Neufeld will be a responsible liaison at this point.
Okay, any other, okay, Trustee Rieschelt, then Trustee Neufeld.
I just want to speak to just a general comment to the public at large and to everybody in the room, which is that gay and transgender people have equal rights in Canada. And so if your opinion is that that's not true, you don't get to have that opinion. Sorry, that's not what our courts say. So when we talk about respecting opinions, we talk about, how much money we should spend on different things. We talk about, should we have a sports team, whatever. Like, I can have lots of differences of opinions, and I will respect everyone's right to have a difference of opinion. But if your opinion is transgender people don't really exist and they're mentally ill, you don't get to have that opinion. If your opinion is gay people shouldn't be allowed to get married or have children, you don't get to have that opinion. I'm sorry. The Supreme Court of Canada, our Human Rights Code, the Canadian Charter is on my side on that, and I do not have to respect that opinion.
Thank you, Chair Coulter. For 23 years, I have been a school trustee. I've been a liaison trustee, and I believe firmly that as an individual trustee, I do not speak for the board. My role as a school liaison was to listen, to bring their concerns back to the board. And if I was to share anything, it was to share the ideas that the board collectively agreed upon. In all this controversy, I have been accused of singling out individual persons, and I have never have. My biggest concern has been some of the learning resources associated with SOGI 123. I am not against gay kids. I am not against transgender kids. I have never said that I oppose gay marriage. What I have been concerned about was some of the policies regarding secrecy, not letting parents be aware of what their children were, their behavior at school, and also the burden being placed on teachers to keep those secrets and to make decisions about the welfare of the children when it's unclear if there was professional opinion involved. Those are my biggest concerns. I would not be a threat to any parent or any child or any staff person in a school. I would go there as a listening voice and attempt to improve the relationship of the board between the members of the school community, and that would be my role as a liaison trustee.
In hearing some of the comments made by trustees who shall remain nameless, according to policy here in this meeting. To suggest or insinuate or mischaracterize the concern of Barry or me or anyone is an error. So the characterization of certain comments that anyone who doesn't agree with same-sex marriage, these types of things are debatable in the sense that that's not what he's saying. So it's very easy to throw out a lot of accusations in a meeting like this and claim that they all belong to Barry, that he or me, that I'm doing this, and then name these quite offensive behaviors. It's almost like the court has decided somebody's guilty of something they've not really been accused of, and they say they haven't done. So we have to be very careful in a public meeting to mischaracterize the situation. Nobody's anti-LGBTQ, so to keep repeating that. In fact, I'm going to make a motion next time to endorse SOGI, but question SOGI 1, 2, 3. And perhaps this board is unaware of the difference. We support SOGI, which is the respect of all rights of gays, LGBTQ people, transgenders, etc. So I think there needs to be a distinction made here, carefully, that the procedure we're going into here sets a precedent that I don't think is good for any board to muzzle a trustee for whatever reason. Dan says or whatever a trustee may say about not feeling safe or attempting to speak for a school without allowing parents to speak on behalf of Barry. See, it's like saying, well, one of our trustees heard someone say, or someone sent me an email and they don't feel safe. Well, we need to have consultations from parents about this, not just make these arbitrary decisions. It's a bad policy to go forward with this kind of procedure, I think, for the operation of this board. It is not building trust within the board, which is one of the purposes, and it certainly isn't going to build trust in the community.
So I would just say, feeling safe is not about individuals. Feeling safe is about groups of people. And whether you are attacking those groups of people. And I'm sorry, but I have to vociferously disagree that all we've been talking about here is one slight issue with SOGI. The public record says very different, unless someone's Facebook group was hacked by Russian trolls, for instance, because they do mention how they'd like to move to Russia.
Point of order, Chair. I said point of order.
Okay, go ahead.
My point of order is that you are now using sarcasm and making derogatory comments in relation to Trustee Neufeld. If you have something concrete and constructive to say, then say.
Okay, so I'm ruling your point of order out of order, but I promise not to use sarcasm anymore. That said, right, to talk about a difference of opinion is one thing, right? But to talk about groups of people as if they don't exist or are somehow lesser than is another thing. And you can have your personal opinions, and I agree. Have your personal opinions. But that doesn't mean I have to accept them, or that the community has to accept them, or that you get, that this isn't a fair process. I've been extremely fair. And like Trustee Swanky said, liaison schools are not in the School Act. Many districts don't even have liaison schools. I'm not discriminating. I would love to know what grounds I was being discriminatory upon, because I'm not. And that is my closing argument to why I want the Board of Education to endorse Appendix A to Policy 223 as presented. So with that, I'll call the question. We've all spoken twice. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, all those in favor? All those against? Okay, did you get that, Donna?
So by presenting this to the board, he was basically depriving me of my duties as a committee member and as having responsibility for liaison schools. Now, basically, he was removing me from office. Robert's Rules of Order is very clear. It provides some protection when you're in a board where there's a constant situation where the majority of the board members all vote as a block and the opposition get shoved under. When you remove an officer, the vote required for adoption is a 2/3 vote. 4 against 3 is not a 2/3 majority. So if they can't get a 2/3 majority, they are supposed to give prior notice. Well, prior notice was not given. It was not even in the agenda. The chairman added this at the very last minute without any previous notice. And what is previous notice? Well, it has a particular meaning in parliamentary law. It should have been on the agenda, which was circulated several days before the meeting. So basically, this was an inappropriate use of his authority as a board chair, and you'll notice that he admits that he's been accused of being a dictator. Well, according to Robert's Rules of Order, he was.